Hello, I'm excited to share my student teaching presentation with you. So here you go. My host school information was I did my student teaching at Anchor Lutheran School in Anchorage, Alaska. The Anchorage mission is to provide a Christ-centered community focused on growth of the whole child by partnering with families to provide an inclusive environment where children flourish academically, spiritually, social, and emotionally. The school was founded in 1979. Currently serves preschool through 12th grade. It just expanded to 12th grade 2 years ago. This year we'll have the first graduating class. There's going to be 3 seniors. It's pretty exciting. There currently is 240 students, and they are just about finished with the second story addition, which is giving the school 12 more classrooms and as well as a gymnasium. Because right now they just have a multipurpose room that serves as a multipurpose room and the sanctuary for the partnering church. Next year, they're expecting to have about 400 students enrolled. They're thinking that upper school and middle school is going to have a boost in it. So it's very exciting. Here's a picture of the school, construction tape and everything that you can see. So I was in 3rd grade for my student teaching experience. There's 20 students, 13 boys, 7 girls. So there was a lot of high energy in that classroom, very busy. About 80% of the students were white, 5% were Alaska Native, 5% were Asian, and 1% mixed African American and white. The school does offer tuition assistance to make sure that any family that would like to attend the school, that can be possible. So my guess would be about 40% of the students in this class were on tuition assistance. Here's a picture of the classroom, which also had construction going on in it, but the kids are very resilient as well as the teachers, and we made it work. So I taught science. What the students were doing for science prior to me teaching it was they just worked out of a textbook, read some blocks of text, and then answered some comprehension questions at the end. There was really no hands-on learning. It was fairly dry, and these kids really like to dive into hands-on learning. Some of the challenges with this class was that they don't have very good stamina. They are very passive learners. They aren't used to being challenged academically sometimes. So when presented with new worksheets and stuff like that, they kind of struggled. So my goal for this science unit was really to incorporate more hands-on learning, more inquiry-based stuff to get their, that stamina built up for them. So the lessons I taught was animal life cycles, environmental change and engineering, pollination and plant reproduction, fruit, seed, and plant reproduction, and plant lifestyles cycles. The standards I chose to go with the unit, the first one I chose was an engineering one because we did a lesson on mosquitoes and controlling the population and they had to design ways to combat the issue of the overpopulation. So that would require engineering. The other 2 were just life science standards. Some instructional strategies I used was direct instruction, class discussion that included small groups and whole class discussion, lots of group work, collaborative learning. These kids have a hard time. The way the classroom's set up is that they're in desks and rows, which I don't think they really enjoy all that much. So they really like to get into groups and be able to work together. Career-based learning, lots of formative assessments, multimedia instruction, hands-on learning, and guided practice. I use technology by using iPads for their animal research. We'll talk about that more in a little bit. And then YouTube was used for supplemental videos on plant growth, and we even watched one on plant seed germination the other day. So for some differentiation strategies, I use graphic organizers. This helped my lower level readers by breaking down the information into more manageable parts for them so they can understand key details. Once again, these kids are not used to being presented worksheets, so having a way to organize their thoughts was really important. Directions had to be given both verbally and written because some of them had a hard time listening, and so being able to see on the worksheet the instructions to refer to was helpful. Lots of infographics, once again for the students that were struggling a little bit. Think, Pair, Share was used. We did project-based learning with their animal research and then hands-on learning activities with their sprout houses and their life cycle diagrams. So how I gauge student knowledge throughout the process, was with formative assessments, thumbs up, thumbs down. That was, do you understand? Show me the thumbs up if you understand, what I'm talking about. I also used it when I needed to see if they were ready to move on to the next part of the lesson. I listened to them in small groups and whole class discussion to kind of get a feel for what they were thinking. We used 3-2-1 charts for the animal research, KLW charts for pollination, and then exit slips. So I kind of used all this information and came to a conclusion of where they were at. Here's some examples of the formative assessment examples. After they first did their animal research, rough draft day, had them do the 3-2-1 chart, and then the KLW chart was for why do plants grow flowers, and the student said underneath that I learned that they learned that plants cannot pollinate themselves, so that was good. Before I taught them anything in this unit, I gave them this pre-unit assessment because I wanted to know where they were at. So I made sure I included questions from each of the topics we were going to be covering just to get a really broad overview of where they were at. Like maybe they knew a lot about plant life cycles, or for instance, this one is, can they show the right order of a frog life cycle? And if a majority of them could, I knew we could kind of like skip a little bit quicker through that lesson. Whereas if they could not answer what role bumblebees play in, plants and stuff like that, and talk about pollination or anything even relevant, I know we needed to hit it a little bit harder in that lesson. So I built this student knowledge score rubric that I used when I was taking into consideration their formative assessments, their like worksheets, that pre-assessment. I included all the categories of the lessons we were going to use, and then I also included the learning standards. So I kind of rated them on beginning, developing, proficient, and advanced. A lot of the students landed on beginning and developing for all these concepts before we started our science lessons. I put it into this table, and I kind of found the average of each one, and I put it into pie charts to visually be able to see a starting point. So here, for instance, is life cycles. 30% were beginning, 60% were developing, 10% were proficient, nobody was advanced. And all of these, nobody was at the advanced level. Environmental change and engineering, 35% beginning, 65% developing. Plant pollination reproduction, 30% beginning, 52% developing, some were proficient. Plant life cycles, getting almost split there between developing and beginning. And then I added in scientific reasoning and justification to the unit, just because I think it's an important skill to build. Some were still up to beginning. There was a lot of developing because they could state like a scientific concept and provide some background knowledge to support it, but they lacked detail. So they're still just really building these skills. Some could fully explain and did pretty well. Those were the proficient kids. So here's some more student work samples. I did a picture of it, but they did animal life cycle posters. The students, they worked with a partner to draw a animal life cycle. I gave a list of choices. There was frog, turtle, chicken, and a few others. So between them and their partner, they decided which one they wanted to do. So they took a blank piece of paper, they drew out the life cycle, and then they had to bring it up to me to get it approved before they can move on to the final draft. And some, would need to go back and add in another one of the stages, or they just needed a lot more prompting to figure out what the life cycle was. And then their final draft was drawn on a poster board, and it was colorful, and then each group presented their life cycle to the class. For the high-level thinkers, I allowed them to choose to draw a life cycle of their choice. For instance, human, or maybe it was a special animal. So for instance, one student who loves puffins drew the life cycle of a puffin, which then I was able to learn something. So their animal research lesson, they chose once again from a very long list of animals. I encouraged them to not pick their favorite animal, but maybe pick an animal that they would like to learn more about. And then we used National Geographic Kids website to conduct the research. And I used this lesson as an opportunity to include teaching them about digital citizenship and critical thinking skills, because they need to learn that you can't just go on Google, type in the animal name, pick the first result and that's going to be like a reputable source. So I wanted to like incorporate that learning opportunity for them. I also modeled on the website where to search for and then go through the website and filter out information that was going to be helpful for their research. So here's an example of the rough draft. They folded the paper into fourths, and I wanted them to find the description of the animal, their diet, the habitat, and 3 fun facts. And the rough draft, I just said the goal is just to get the content on there. We only had 1 day or maybe 2 to do this. So they kind of had to focus and filter out the important stuff. This is their final product. They had the cute little pictures, and then underneath the picture was different sections with the diet and the description. There was a little globe where they wrote or colored in what part of the world their animals from. I made this bulletin board, which worked out great because student-led conferences happened, and the students were really thrilled to be able to show their parents their work on display in the hallway because that bulletin board stayed blank often. That's just something the teacher didn't really get a chance to keep up with. So people in the school enjoyed seeing it, and the kids felt really proud. That was a really special moment. This mosquito problem lesson was the kids were given a scenario, and the scenario was that there was an overpopulation of mosquitoes in the town. It was causing issues because mosquitoes carry diseases. And so they learned about different solutions from experts, for instance, a park ranger, a fisherman, and they took this information to come up with design an idea of how that was going to help the problem. So for instance, the fisherman said the fish eat mosquitoes, mosquito eggs and larvae, and the dragonflies eat the mosquitoes. So some of the kids said, well, I'm going to get as many dragonflies as I can and bring those to the area and try and populate the area. And then I'm going to add more fish to the pond or, body of water to hopefully keep this egg problem, down. And the next picture was kids were given different scenarios. Once again, this is a backyard picture. Some kids had a park, and they were supposed to look at the picture and identify what in the picture is leading to the mosquito problems. So quickly the kids identified that kiddie pool is standing water and it causes the eggs to overpopulate, and that's an issue. So they had to write how that they would go about solving the problem. This is a plant and bees worksheet. They were given a scenario of a greenhouse and a garden in the yard. And the garden in the yard was thriving and doing great, and the greenhouse was doing okay, but just wasn't doing as well as the outdoor garden, and why. And so the kids identified that the outdoor garden had bees flying around and what roles the bees played in that, and the greenhouse did not have the bees. And so how could we help the plants in the greenhouse to start thriving, do hopefully maybe as well as the outdoor garden. They identified plants, parts of a plant. So they found vocabulary words, and if they got the word right, then that corresponded with a certain color, and then they colored the sheet on the right-hand side here. Pretty basic, fun, but they enjoy just doing stuff like this. These are their sprout houses. After a lesson on seed germination, we colored these little paper sprout houses. They took a paper towel, got it wet, laid the seeds in it, put it in a baggie, taped that to their sprout house, and we put it in the school window. They know that it's going to take warmth and sunlight to sprout their beans, and we live in Alaska, so it's going to be a learning opportunity to see how long these beans take and how they do. At the end of the unit, I gave them a summative assessment, once again with questions from different topics that we had covered, just to get a feel for, could they now give me more detail on these different concepts? And I think they did great. There was more questions on this one versus the pre-assessment, but these questions were more challenging, or would actually ask for more specific information, and they were able to provide it. So that was really great. We made a book at the end. On the left-hand side, we glued the assessment they took at the beginning, and on the right-hand side, the one that they took at the end. They decorated the front with life cycles, titled and colored it, and enjoyed that process. So with the summative assessment results, all their homework, class discussions, both whole and small group, I was able to just gauge their student knowledge once again with using the rubric, and I scored them. And they scored a lot better at the end of the unit. I graphed it out. In the beginning, it's blue, and majority of them were at beginning developing knowledge on these topics. At the end of the unit, they were scoring much higher. Some students, unfortunately, just kind of still hung at the developing level. That's okay. They have, that's them. They need more time to really grasp some of these concepts, more practice. But the majority were now at a proficient, almost close to proficient level. We didn't have really a few lessons they scored, I feel like advanced, like they really dove deep into the concepts, but the majority of them just were proficient, and I was pleased with that. So reflection and instructional adaptations, it's teaching the kids how to use the formative assessments. I learned that even though I explained to them how you would use like a 3-2-1 chart and the purpose, once I gave it to them, sometimes when I got them back, they were writing things like they learned about math or they learned about football that day because they were thinking of the whole school day versus the lesson that we just discussed. So what I would need to do is go back and teach them one section at a time. Like at the end of a lesson, we only talk about what did we learn. We don't talk about what I wonder. We don't talk about anything else like that. And when they can build that habit of being able to recognize, reflect, then you could add more to it, but you have to start slow. I learned the worksheets that I created for them really challenged their thinking. Some did great with it. Some still really need to build that stamina. They didn't want to do the worksheets, and we just had to keep doing that, listing the expectations of the lessons and just trying to get them not to be passive learners. For the sprout houses, as a adding to that process, like I said, we realized that the sprout houses weren't going to do well in the window. So I brought one home to put in the greenhouse, and we're going to, at my house that has grow lights, and we're going to compare the two. Be fun. Inquiry-based learning, I learned is really great for them. They love the hands-on experience. I think my assessment strategies was effective, and it showed growth for the students. In the future, I will design the lessons to connect with other subjects. I will incorporate more technology, maybe do field trips or simulations. I focus more on scaffolding strategies like I do, we do, you do. Model the thinking process, talking out loud through my problem solving strategies to get them to do that deeper thinking, and create some anchor charts. So all in all, I enjoyed my student teaching experience. I saw how hands-on and inquiry-based learning really transforms the lesson. I think they got more out of the science experience when I taught it. And so, during this time, I grew both spiritually and professionally. And as I continue as an educator, I'm looking forward to building those skills and inspiring a love for learning with my students. So thank you so much.